Hello and welcome to episode 18 of Startup Success Students with your host, Ryan Karim. Now, today we are speaking to a wellness expert who is a long-standing entrepreneur. We've got lots of experience to share, particularly about stress and burnout. That's what we're going to learn lots about this episode. And before we get into learning more about Calmness, who's the CEO and founder of Wellness Orbit, we will check out Wellness Orbit's website in a second, actually, just before we speak to the guest today. But beforehand, just show you this page. If you want to learn more about the podcast, you can register to be a guest. You can check out or invite me to join the episode. Sorry, Connor, I can't talk to you now. And we've got 1-minute clips available. The most recent episodes available, all the episodes available there. And obviously don't forget to subscribe to the channel too. Fantastic. So today's guest, Core says to us, he really wants to share insights on why training your mind matters and why we should all focus on stress reduction. Now, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because on this screen, we have all about Wellness Orbit, where we can take a free stress test straight away. We can learn more about how to nip stress in the bud, as well as burnout, and look after our mental health in a more creative, kind of vital and productive way. Some e-training that's available. I think there's a focus here on working with businesses as well, you know, so you can help at some sort of scale. So this looks like a very interesting person to speak to. Looks like we're going to learn lots about useful things, especially for budding entrepreneurs and business builders, how to keep yourself on the straight and narrow, how to avoid that awful stress and burnout, which I must say I've experienced a number of times. So let's see. I believe Core will be with us in the usual 3, 2, 1. Let's go. All right, and welcome, Kawa. I'm not going to say that right at all. I said Core at the beginning, and you did correct me earlier. So how do we actually say your name? Go on, tell us.
Yeah, I'm Calmness. I'm actually from Estonia.
Estonia, awesome. All right, and thank you for that. I know what it's like for people to say, "How do I say your name?" But it's important. Names are important. So we always chuck our guests in at the deep end, my friend, and we chuck them in at the deep end straight away by saying, what does success mean to you? Can you define that for us? You know, everyone's got their own version of it, their own twist, their own flavor. But what does success mean to you?
Well, to me, success means that you have inner peace or inner calmness, regardless whatever you do. I mean, without inner peace or inner calmness, what is actually the measure of success? If you have plenty of money, but you have no inner calmness or inner peace, is it success? I think it's more like a mental health issue.
Yeah.
It's not really a success story when you have lost your inner calmness. So for me, definitely the success is inner calmness or inner silence whenever you need it.
I love it. Being able to take that moment of silence. There's a famous Bob Marley quote. I grew up with Bob Marley. Bob Marley changed my life, right? But his perspectives really did help me question myself, you know, and take an alternative viewpoint. But there's a famous quote of him, and it says, I think it's an interviewer asking him a question. It's like, Bob, so Bob, have you made a lot of money? And he says, what do you mean like a lot of money? He says, well, you know, are you a rich man? Are you a millionaire? Are you rich? And he said, what do you mean rich? He said, you know, do you have money? And he says like, no, I don't have that kind of richness. My richness is life forever. You know, I have a richness in my experience of life. I've always loved that quote. And it kind of shares the same perspective that you just stated there too, right? It's a wider perspective. And just before we got started into the episode, we were talking about how personal life and business, it's really kind of, you can't separate them at all. And in fact, your business, Wellness Orbit, you talk about the integration of a work-life balance. So what is a work-life balance? So what does that mean?
Well, I think work-life balance is just a very ancient term, and I think it came from the era of industrial revolution. So that you worked your 10 hours and then you had probably a little bit of your own life, and you kind of kept them separate. But I think everything changed this little when it came along. I mean, it's constantly on, and it means that the news feed is constantly there. It's either related to your work, or when you are at work, it was related to your personal life. And for me, at least during my years in business, has meant that when my kid is calling, I answer my phone. And I haven't actually seen any business meeting where I have attended to that when you say that, excuse me, can I take 3 minutes to talk with my kids? that once I say that, well, no. Everybody's saying, okay.
Of course, I work with people, they have their kids in the background, we all wave at the kids, we bring them in, you know, it's just like, it's part of life, isn't it? You know, there's no point, especially in a remote working world, you know, just embrace it. You know, we're all people at the end of the day.
Exactly. And in the same way, for example, when you are doing something on a late evening and something pops in your mind and, well, you have a great idea, you just pick a piece of paper, write it down. Yes, it's work, but I mean, you got your good idea on the paper, which means you can work with it next day. But if you kind of keep thinking about throughout the night, then you don't get the good rest.
Yeah.
You're a little bit tired and stressed in the morning, and you still have forgotten it.
And you might have missed a really good idea. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So work-life integration in that sense means that you kind of take things naturally as they come along. You, of course, you choose your focus. When you need to focus on something, then, for example, I sometimes also tell my kids that, well, sorry, I'm taken from today, for example, from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and please, I cannot answer your phone calls at that time.
Yeah.
So I understand it quite well, unless they are very young. But I would say that even in the age of 4 or 5, when they already understand the concept of clocks, I understand quite well that you sometimes have to do something.
Yeah.
If you don't, I think you have to look at yourself, that you haven't explained to them very well, that you need also time for something. So in that sense, I think everything comes down to just integrating different activities so that they work for you as a person. And I would say that whatever works for me necessarily is not something that works for you, and vice versa.
It's very true. Yeah, it's highly personalized, isn't it? We've all got a different ebb and flow, haven't we? We've all got a certain time of day where we're better to do different types of activities. Some people are better doing like analysis in the morning, or they're better doing their sales calls in the afternoon. And everyone's got a different way of working. Everyone's got a different ebb and flow, haven't they? So it's interesting to hear that, because I mean, a lot of people say if you're stressed, you're working too much, so therefore you need to work less. And therefore you need to find a way to do more, hire people, be more productive, reorganize things, you know. Or in your case, is kind of, I guess your navigation point for me seems to be about saying, how can you just like allow your system to flow naturally without trying to create blockages all the time, you know? If you've got an impulse, follow through with it. If you've got a call coming through, take the call. Just like go literally with the kind of ebb and flow of your own life and stop getting blocked all the time. And it seems maybe your intervention in that way is reducing stress by getting rid of the blockages. Is that, I don't know, what do you think about that? Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
or
I
is it a bit different?
that kind of summarizes it up quite well. But I would mention one thing. Going in the flow doesn't mean that you don't take any time off or you don't rest at all. It also means, for example, that when there is a longer stretch of work that you do, and that is quite, let's say, demanding focus and attention, and you have to be fully kind of using every skill you have at your fullest capacity. So after such moment, you definitely need also time for yourself. You just kind of go out there and take a cup of tea or whatever you enjoy, and definitely avoid this device as a kind of surfing on an internet when you take a break. What I usually like, for example, after very intensive moments, is just to sit in a quiet place and just let go of everything. Let go of my thoughts, let go of my emotions, just become innerly silent and enjoy a moment for a while.
I know, it's one of those things that, I mean, I practice a bit of meditation, so for me that makes a lot of sense, but I can imagine some people that are less, you know, familiar with meditation are probably like, oh, just let go. Like it's that easy, right? Like, oh, yeah, if I could just only let go, you know? But, you know, the important thing to know, especially if people are watching this, is there are, you know, yourself, your company, Wellness Orbit, that's one way they can go and get help. There's many other ways as well. You can start to play around with that sense of being able to let go. Yoga, Tai Chi, meditation. There's loads of different forms of meditation from different disciplines and continents and cultures. So it definitely works, and all of that stuff is now scientifically proven too. So it's no longer wackos in a corner. They've done proper science experiments. So yeah, there's loads of help and support out there. Interested, mate. How on earth did you end up because where you're based in Estonia now, or are you somewhere new?
Well, I'm currently located in Estonia, yes. And,
Yeah. So
yeah.
how did you end up, being where you are today? Like, where did things begin? Were you born and raised in Estonia? And how did this idea of wellness become so important to you?
Well, yeah, actually, I'm born and raised in Estonia, and I studied planning in Sweden. So
Okay.
initially, I worked as a spatial planner for 20 years. It was my main core focus and also my business area, because I didn't work as an employee. I was owner of a business and built a business, and sold it off quite successfully.
Well done.
But however,
how did you do that? You can't gloss over that one. How did that happen so miraculously and so easily? Like water off a duck's back, that was, wasn't it? Just started a company and sold it and moved on. It's like, oh, okay, hold up there. What was the company? When did the idea first come to you? How did you sell it? What was that process like? Talk us through the journey.
Well, it was so that I studied planning in Sweden, and when I came back to Estonia, then city man and someone with a good planning capacity, and then I met a few guys who had a company, and they said, "Well, we do environmental consulting. Would you like to start a spatial planning department?" I said, "Well, yeah, but not as an employee. I would gladly do it when I can become a co-owner."
Yeah.
And then they had a little discussion, and I did one initial project first as a trial, and they were happy with it. And then they said, "Okay, let's do it." And then I started building this department from scratch. Basically, I had a phone book and I started calling. And when I ended up with the letter P, somewhere in the end of a phone book, then I had a first customer. So it was
Wow.
really
Okay, that's a lot of phone calls, man.
kind of a
That
cold
is
calling, trial and error.
interesting.
And
For one of the businesses I'm helping at the moment, CBD Sanctuary, that's a phase we're about to get into. Actually, is picking up the phone and directly reaching out to new customers that we want to work with, B2B kind of arrangement. And what did you learn from this cold calling phase? Because that's a lot of phone calls you've gone through there. You must have learned a recipe, man. So tell us, what did you learn and what started to work?
well, I have to be honest, I don't like cold calls.
No, of course not, but they're
But
necessary at the
everybody has
beginning,
to
aren't they?
get their first customer somewhere. And what I
Yeah,
learned
you got
is
to
that
start. You got to start.
you have to deal with a no.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of no's, B, a lot of no's, C, a lot of no's.
And when you're done with
Went
that,
on and
go
on
back
and
to A.
on. M, still a lot of no's. And then it came B, finally, first customer, yeah. But
Wow.
it's not easy to make cold calls, and it definitely demands a lot of let's say, calmness inside. So that when you get a no, it's not about you. It's about, well, say don't need a service at the moment.
That's okay.
And then you have to deal with it and pick a next number and try again and try again and try again.
When's a good time to reach back out to you to see if you might be interested? No, I'm really not interested. No problem. Have a good day. You know what I mean? But
yeah. And with every call, you actually learn what to do. But anyway, when I kind of ended
what
up
did you learn? What did you learn? By the time you got to P, what was your one? Just give us one key snippet. By the time you got to P, you thought, right, I'm going to do this differently now.
I wouldn't say that I did so much differently. I think I just became very calm and relaxed with calling.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. Your mindset shifted. Okay.
Yeah, because when you do the first calls, you're always a little bit nervous and what happens and so on.
Yeah.
But then you kind of calm down and have a natural conversation and ask how are the situation and do the needs out of this. And when you get some yes answers and there is hope, and then you start building from there. It's very different, very difficult to say in different businesses how you do it. I mean, for example, with Wellness Orbit, we have to sell totally different thing. We sell e-trainings, which has nothing to do with spatial planning. But however, I think what really matters is that you just find a story and find questions that are suitable for you. It's not about anyone else. It's about you and the prospect. And when you find a kind of a flowing way of doing it, then I think success will sooner or later come. And what I've learned over 25 years as an entrepreneur is a very simple thing. There is no such thing as failure without giving up. The only failure is giving up.
100%.
Failure, there is temporary failures, there is temporary mistakes, but every little things that you do wrong, every
I
little
just see it as things you
mistakes
have
that
to
you
go
make,
through, man.
it's something.
Sometimes you have to go through that experience, right? A footballer has to go through the experience of getting shouted at by the fans, right? You know, he has to have the experience of maybe missing a good opportunity so that he takes the next one when it's the cup final. Do you know? You have to go through these experiences in order to learn. You know, so is there really failing when you're growing? You know what I mean? Is it a fail because you've just grown as a result of that experience? So you know, it can't necessarily be
failure
seen
is
as a
when you
negative.
fall and don't stand up again.
It's
That's
true.
definitely a failure. But as long as you just kind of made a mistake and correct it, you know, and move on, it's just learning, and learning is great. And what I learned by doing spatial plans was actually a very simple thing. It was that when you want to get along with people, and I mean, spatial planning is a lot about cooperation, about public participation, about public meetings, about doing something in someone's backyard which they don't like. And I kind of learned two things. First, you cannot take anything personally. Whatever someone says, it's a view based on their experience. And on my backyards, and I would always say no. It doesn't make any sense to me to have it in a backyard. And object can be much smaller, and opinions can be very different. But what matters is that when you stay calm as a person who's leading the plan, and as a person who's discussing with others, then you always can find some things that you agree upon. And it can even be a very simple thing that you agree to disagree.
Yeah,
there's always something to agree upon. And once you find something to agree upon, then you can build a discussion. As long as you are kind of in conflict with everything, there is no discussion. But when you, for example, agree that yes, you have your views, I have my views, I respect yours, can you respect mine, please?
At least then you've got a starting place.
Discussion.
Yeah,
and
then you've got to start.
Was that when you have kind of difficult discussions, and people definitely attack you. And what it kind of meant for me was that I needed to find some ways to stay innerly calm.
So you don't get triggered and act out of character or in a way that you wouldn't be proud about, you know?
Exactly. And I kind of had a funny story once that we had a public meeting. It already ended. And we presented the plan, and it didn't go at all as we wanted. And it became clear that this plan was something that we didn't continue with. And what happened was that I ripped down the map from a wall. I just put it as a pile and throw it in a trash bin. But there was someone from a newspaper angry at all, but the news, I couldn't go on with this plan. It was kind of a worthless piece of paper, and there was many things written on it that didn't make any sense anymore because we agreed something different. But I needed to clarify it later on, like over 3 interviews, that, well, we still continue with the plan. We cut into account those opinions that people had. And in the end, everybody was happy. But when they see a reactivity, then any reactivity that could be used against you, if there is media present, is often used against you. Any activities that you have in public or with your customer, if you take any business, that is negative, is used against you. So in that sense, for me, it became very important as a planner to understand how my mind works. And I kind of grew up so that my mother was a psychologist.
Oh, right. Wow.
So there was a little initial interest in it, but it didn't really interest me before I kind of came to the hard place myself and really needed to understand how human mind works.
How much do you think that influenced? How much do you think that influenced the way she raised you? You know, did she raise you with a psychologist perspective? Were you therefore quite aware of psychological concepts and kind of ways of looking at things from a young age, or Was it just a kind of an ordinary childhood, and you
No, I
found
wouldn't
it
say
for
that.
yourself later?
I would say that I found myself studying it later. She didn't impress it anyway. Maybe, yeah. She raised me and my brother alone, so it was kind of, yeah. I think she had it quite busy with working and everything else, but she did a good job. We had a lot of freedom. We had the freedom to study whatever we wanted. We had the
Yeah, man.
freedom to get bad grades,
Shout
which I
out all the
enjoyed
single mothers,
sometimes.
man. Big up all the
And
single mothers out there, definitely.
exactly. And then I later on ended up marrying a psychiatrist.
Wow, all right. There's definitely something going on in your family there, right?
Yeah, and as I also this psychiatrist, her name is Helena, with whom we were married about 14 years. We are divorced now, but this kind of led to one interest in psychiatry of psychology side, but also the other interest was more in yoga side.
Okay.
Just about calming my mind, finding different techniques that work very easy to be relaxed, to keep myself well. And then I think about 7 years ago, or actually 10 years ago, we somehow started to have discussions with Helena at home that, okay, we should actually do something so that her skills, what we know both from yoga and what I know from entrepreneurship, should be combined into something new that everybody can use.
Yeah.
And it can kind of took about, let's say, 5 years from initial idea to actually having a first online training available.
Beautiful.
But the point was that we often have skills, what we do professionally. I mean, I studied planning in Sweden. I got very good professional skills. You can study architecture or whatever is your profession, medical profession, programmer, whatever. But they don't teach you one thing in schools. And
what's
this
that?
is about interpersonal skills.
It's true.
That we don't teach at all at schools.
Yeah, it's true.
And it kind of came down to this, that, well, I personally needed to use those skills, how to lead different processes.
Night and day. As soon as I went on a fast big track at a big bank and started to learn about like ways of communicating and language and teamwork and setting visions and allowing teams of people to solve problems without telling them what to do, just because you can ask questions and facilitate, was like, wow, you know, it changes everything. It changes the way that you engage in your families. It changes the conversations you have with your friends. It changes the way you are in discussion, you know. There's a lot of learning there just in the way that you communicate. And you're right, they don't go near it in school. How you study English for all that time and no one talks with you about how you use the English language? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So yeah,
or even
there's
more,
lots of problems with schools.
Yeah, or even more simple examples. They tell you in school, focus. But nobody is telling you how to focus.
Yeah, I mean, our school were more interested in like trying to keep the kids in the classroom and make sure there wasn't anything flying across the classroom. Yeah,
exactly.
but they do say they do try and get you to focus, and it's right. They don't teach you any of the life skills that would be useful, especially to do with your like emotional imbalances. You know, lots of young people, don't forget as well, they're in quite traumatic environments. They're in quite rough conditions, and there's probably, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of help and support available to them. And the schools are kind of limited in what they are able to do. No one really knows how to access the help and support that maybe they might need and really benefit from. You know, it's quite a bad state of affairs, really, when you think about how much capability is probably sitting at home, capable of helping, but there's no pathway for it, you know, because it's about price point, it's about resource allocation. You know, schools have got limited funds. So then, you know, it's just about trying to find a way of that working at scale, which I often ponder, but haven't yet come up with an answer.
Yeah, but in that sense, I would say that the answer is not so much about help and support, which is definitely needed when you have a problem. But the answer actually lies before you need help and support.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
And I would say that was our kind of idea based on my own experience. What I really need is skills to stay well and keep being well. And keep performing at my peak performance, for example, in a public meeting as I had, or during a TV interview, or doing whatever I do professionally, or writing a long, complicated, legally important text, which is giving a building right to someone, and then raising the value of a land like tenfold times. You cannot make mistakes in those texts, and then you need to focus. And you actually need to learn the process of focusing. And there have, for example, been a study, which is quite real.
Teach me now. Teach me something. What can I do to focus more? Give me a tip now.
I will tell you one thing before. Usually it takes about 23 minutes to refocus.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a scientific study on it.
That's pretty crazy. I dance between activities sometimes without a gap in between. And they're quite drastically different activities, and they're maybe for different businesses, different brands, and it's different problems, different contexts, like completely different thinking. 23 minutes. I wonder, maybe it does take me about that time to get properly into the new activity, actually thinking about it. Yeah, it's true. Interesting.
But once you know the process, it can be quite fast, and it's not something you can learn like this, but you can learn it in a sad sense that you have to first become aware who is the one who focuses. And that person is you. And we often we just look around, our eyes are searching something, but you have to pick a topic or object.
Okay.
Then you have to just when you pick the object, you have to let go everything that is not the object.
Yeah.
For example, if you have thoughts about something else and you are looking at the object, then what is in your focus? Is it your thoughts or this object? And I would say that your thoughts are the focus. And that's why kids, for example, in the classroom, they sit, teacher is kind of speaking all the time, and so you're thinking all the time.
Yeah.
And nothing from here comes here. It's kind of a connection is missing, which means that you have to choose, make a choice to listen who is speaking. And this choice actually is a key here. You have a freedom of choice. We all as humans have a freedom of choice.
We do.
Which means that when you make an aware decision, it's a lot different than just looking at something that is going by, like, well, yeah. It went, but you don't remember anything. It just, we see during our days when we run a monkey mind regime without involving any awareness or any decisions, we see like, probably millions of different objects during a day. And they come and go and come and go. And when we use those devices here, then those have like endless flow of information.
Yep.
We constantly use this move. Scroll, scroll, scroll. No focus, just passing. But focusing demands being still and focusing on object.
I feel like I'm in a Tai Chi lesson again. This is awesome.
Whatever is flowing by, have to go.
Yeah, it's true.
You cannot do both things at the same time. You have to choose. You awarely, with full awareness, have to choose one object and focus on it. And then it works. But it's
I have this
kind of a confusion that people don't know, that they have to make a decision. And what I like about the decisions is a very simple thing, which people don't realize very often, is that not making a decision is a decision. And I can repeat it. Not making a decision is always also a decision. If you go constantly with a flow of information and don't focus on anything, it's a decision not to focus. Versus, you pick one object, you look at it, and you let go of everything else. And in that sense, it's kind of a very basic thing.
I'm very good at that then. That's
becoming
what
aware of what you do. And I think that's kind of when we talk about interpersonal skills that we teach in all wellness work trainings, or that we see also as a base of mental wellness, and that we also see as a base of professional skills, not but interpersonal skills that you have within your own mind, skills that are here regardless where you go. Those skills are always 100% with you. When you need to focus, you focus. When you need to be creative, you become silent first, and creativity appears. And when you know such kind of interpersonal skills, which allow creativity, insights, intuition, just staying true to your flow of thoughts on a certain topic. For example, when you write something about Coastal Protection Act, then you only write about this. No other thoughts are allowed. And it's also a conscious choice. Just to think about one topic at a time. You may realize that when you're thinking about this Coastal Protection Act, which is not fun at all, then some ideas come in that, well, I would love to be on a beach and swim. Related to the act? No, not at all. But when you think about, okay, how is the building right defined on a coast? So you understand that, well, it's related to the act, and I have to find it from act, define meters or feet or whatever as I use somewhere in the world, and then understand what is the topic.
I understand what you're saying.
It's kind of a constant choice of choosing to focus what you are doing. And the choice is not made once, but it's like a constantly made. And forgetting to choose means that you have lost your focus. For example, if somebody's listening right now, I mean, they have two options. They can have this podcast on, and they can go and boil the water and make some tea or coffee or do whatever, or write something, and whatever we speak here, they don't hear it. So hear that we speak, but what we speak is ununderstood.
They're not listening.
Exactly. So we are just a noise in the background.
Hopefully not. Hopefully they're listening. Maybe you've got their attention now and they're listening again.
Exactly. Or they can make a choice that, okay, I'll listen what Karim and Cole have to say and what else is speaking of. And okay, those guys actually might have a point that I need to focus. What I need to focus upon. Okay, I need to focus on their voice.
It's also a great way of getting things done, right? That is the name of the game. You focus on one thing at a time. If you can, as a team, right? Focus on one thing at a time as a team and see how fast things move, because it's your absolute focus. It's the only thing you're focused on. There's nothing else to put any of your energetic or your psychic powers into. There's none of that imagination needed for anything else other than that task. Often people give them a time box, we want to do this task for this amount of time. So then the trick becomes about how can you scope up your work in sizable chunks so that you can create things of meaning that have tangible outcomes in a time frame that's going to allow you guys to have single-mindedness or focus like that, So, again, you work intensely like that, you need time off as well. And kind of what you were speaking to there is my way of saying, sometimes I'm leaning in and I need to then I need to lean back. But I've got two modes really. I'm either like leaning back and therefore I'm observing and I'm seeing what's in my mind and I'm seeing what comes around, and I'm deliberately not focusing, but at the same time I am deliberately observing what's on my mind and trying to find more clarity and more definition of what's happening up there basically. And other times I'm just completely, utterly just focused on one thing. And it's like one or the other. Right? That's all we're doing. So I think that's one way of describing what you were saying there too. It's like leaning forward or kind of leaning backwards. That's how I would understand it. Is that, do you think I'm of sound mind here? Am I on the right lines, or have I misunderstood?
Yeah, I think you're totally correct here. I would say there is also one more option.
Yeah.
Which is kind of you're focused on work.
Yeah.
Or any task, whatever you're doing, which is kind of about getting things done. We actually have a training with this name. But it becomes down to getting this thing at hand done well.
Yeah.
And the good point is that when you focus and do something, and when you do it impeccably, not perfectly, but impeccably. And what I mean by imperfect is, the perfect is something that we cannot really attain. Impeccable to me means that it's about doing your best, putting in your fullest effort, your fullest focus, and doing it the best way. And then when it's done, then you also let it go and do resting impeccably, which means that during a rest, you focus on activities you like listening to music, walking in the nature. And when you walk in the nature and when you listen to music at the same time, for example, then the question is that, are you walking in the nature or are you listening to music? And what I think is a killer of productivity, both at work and also during a holiday, is multitasking.
Yeah, it's true.
We should do more aware monotasking and less multitasking. It's okay to listen to music, for example, when you are in a bus or driving somewhere. It's a kind of a good pastime in a situation where you don't have to do anything. But when you come to nature and want to relax and want to listen to the sound of nature, it's no point of listening to the music at the same time, because then you are like, your body is in the nature, but basically you have your headphones on. You are not in the nature. You've
almost disconnected yourself from nature, haven't you? You know, if I was walking through the mountains just in front of my place by the ocean just down here, if I was walking through there with headphones on, I've literally put a barrier in between myself, my senses, and the environment I'm in, haven't I? So I'm obviously going to be disconnected. I'm not going to be as connected to nature as I should be. So you're right. It's a really good tip. You know, single-minded and focused. Make sure you've got that. What did you call it? Monotone, or not monotone, but it's like monofocus. Monotasking. That's it. Monotasking.
Yeah, one task at a time. Monotasking.
Definitely. And so interested from looking at you.
Before we move on, I would like to say one more thing about nature. What I love about nature is that I usually take every weekend a longer nature walk. And you can go to nature for several purposes. You can run, you can walk, you can ski, you can do whatever you like. But basically, there is a very big difference if you focus on listening to nature and being present in nature, or are you just running through or passing through the nature? And my aim with going to the nature is actually be connected with the nature. What was a very good thing in nature that most people don't realize is a very simple thing. When you start to listen, especially in the evenings or during the nights or during sundowns, nature becomes silent. And when you start listening to silence, then it's very easy actually to create silence within yourself. It's kind of an external silence, and inner silence becomes the same on the same level. And once you kind of go down, so that there is nothing left, there is total silence. And when you discover this silence, then you really start discovering your true essence, which is consciousness. When you are conscious, you are silent. Consciousness in the essence is inner silence. And I would say that for me, the biggest value in nature is actually listening to silence, being there, taking part of this silence and experiencing this silence, and also experiencing inner silence within myself. And when I do that, I always feel that my body is actually relaxing. It becomes calm. My mind becomes calm. My thoughts will fade away. When I start kind of observing what is around me, so I see tiny details like ants going around, or a little movement of wind on branches. And when you kind of observe those things, then you also have a focus on what you observe. Is it on an ant or on a branch, or just listening, a distant voice, or even choosing not to listen to anything, but focusing on silence. And when you focus on silence, then you actually experience a moment of total inner freedom. And this state is actually stress-free. And in that sense, I think people kind of very often walk through the nature.
Yeah. It's almost like, just like you said.
Nature.
Yeah, it's like you said, No choice is a choice. No sound is a sound in a way, you know. I often find sitting about, you know, probably when it gets dark, that's when I realize it gets silent. When it's dark, when there's no light outside, all the animals go to bed, even the humans eventually, they go to bed, and they even turn the lights off at some point in time. And then normally if you can get up before the sun gets up, you have this beautiful moment, especially where, you know, I live somewhere where I'm fortunate enough to see out across the Mediterranean. I've got a nice beach in front of me. So, and I've got a couple of palm trees and some birds that fly around. So since I've been here for the last year, I've been really, really connected to this stuff and following it and like amazed by it and seeing beautiful sunsets. And for someone who's grown up in kind of inner and just the sort of outer cities, always full of like, you know, concrete jungles, this is like a godsend in a way. It's beautiful. It's amazing, but it's really got me more connected to it. And you're right. That time in the morning, just before the sun comes up, or, you know, quite late in the evening, there's just a different essence in the air. That your mind works differently, your body feels differently, whether you're just getting up or whether it's time to go to bed. It's just that there's a different vibe in the air at that time. And you're right, your system does seem to have a different dial. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because the planet we're on is fueled by the sun and the moon and all the other energies that are around it. If the composition changes because the sun's now hiding and the moon's up, you would expect for there to be a very different impact on life on Earth. And you can see that the sun makes the plants grow, whereas the moon helps the ocean move, you know. So it's all interconnected in different ways. But it's amazing when you get to really observe nature and you realize just how phenomenal the planet we live on is. And it is the simplest things, like the air that's traveling over that ocean right now is what's keeping us both alive, even though you're in Estonia and I'm in Spain, you know. And it also helps provide life to everything else around us too, you know, just the air, the thing we can't even see. And we're so busy observing the things that we can see and talking about them and doing science projects on them, but no one's talking about the rest of it, right? What's this air? What's this space? Because I think there's a secret there. I think that's how energy moves.
Exactly, and you can take the same thing in music. When I listen a lot of power metal.
Oh, really?
What power metal is actually using very often. There is a Finnish band called Nightwish.
Okay.
They have a very kind of a symphonic and a strong metal sound, and then they break it, and there's a pause.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this pause amplifies the sound.
Wow.
It makes it so much stronger. It makes
Dramatic.
it so much meaningful.
Yeah, it's like it's creating a space.
In music, also in classical music, so very often use silence. And again, it's something that we often overlook. A tiny thing, something that we don't notice. We are so used.
You know, it's true. I mean,
we are so used to noises. We are so used to watching whatever is going on that we actually forget to notice the air. We forget to notice the silence. And then when you look at nature, everything is constantly in change. Change is natural part of nature. Change is natural part of our lives. And what we often try to do is we try to kind of cling on something. It's my mark. You cannot take it. It's mine.
Yeah.
I want to keep it forever. It's my kind of best mark. Actually, it's my old company, which I sold some years ago. It's dear to me. But basically, it's a mark. Well, you can use it for drinking, and that's the point of it. It's no point of focusing on a mug or talking about my mug all the time.
I know, but sometimes that gets very deep, though, doesn't it? Because sometimes it's our identity that we're clinging on to. You know, like I've gone through a series of different kind of phases in my life, if you want to see it that way. And the teenage years were like probably places that I shouldn't open too many Pandora's box. You know, I should probably keep that where it is in the teenage years. But you know, you go through these evolutionary phases, and that is what life is all about. I have this like quote I always go back to. Don't know where it started from or whose quote it is by now. I've lost all track of it, but I love the quote. And it says, if to improve is to change, then to perfect must be to change often. Yeah, so perfection is not an end state. It's a continuum. And just like nature is perfect by design, because that's just the way it all hangs together perfectly and keeps working perfectly, it's in a continuum. And so therefore, you should always change and you should always evolve and you should always adapt. And just like nature, sense and respond from your environment. Are you putting yourself in the right environment so that you can sense and respond in the right way, in the positive ways, in the ways that you hopefully see that your most hopeful, most inspired version of your own future. And if you don't know what that looks like, just spend some time, follow the advice we had earlier. Get single-mindedness of focus and think about where you really see yourself. Use your imagination, just sense and adapt, even in imagination land, and see where you get, because thinking big about your own future is so important for your mental health as well, isn't it? Listen, Core, I love this conversation, love talking with you. I want to learn a little bit more about your business, and I'm just interested in particularly in, like, for people that are watching, how can they engage with you, and also what sort of clients are you looking for? I mean, I've seen on your website that there's definitely an angle of working with businesses, because I guess you want that scale of being able to help loads of people, and obviously loads of people work with businesses, so it makes sense. You go more of a B2B angle to get the scale and the impact. But what is the type of business clients that you're looking for? If do you do anything in the B2C land? Can an ordinary person who's maybe not through their business, can they reach out to you? Tell us, how do people engage with your business?
Well, wellnessorbit.com is the easiest way.
Yeah.
You just click in wellnessorbit and .com, and you come to the page and you can look it up what we're doing. Basically, yes, it's mostly B2B focused, but we offer also opportunity to buy a single training. So you can be a private person and buy our training as well. Our point has been very much of making a mental wellness revolution. And it means that we want to bring down the price of using opportunity to train your mind. I would say that we sometimes use the words that we are mental wellness gym. Not in the sense that you go to the gym, but when you go to the gym, you do some things that you like it. It's a physical activity. You get stronger and you feel it, and you kind of once you get used to it, it's fun. It's not like hard work. It includes hard work, but in a fun way.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do the same thing for training your mind. So when you come to the training, it's not a hard work, but it's about being focused. It's about doing exercises what you are given. It's about doing self-evaluation tests and getting feedback and learning from it, and then applying what you learn. And then instead of building this muscle here, you build your brain or your mind, so that it can stay well when you come into difficult situations.
Cool.
So yeah, we have
beautiful. I love
several
that.
trainings available, and we also have a lot of free resources. So you can just come to wellnessorbit.com and click the free resources, and you find articles, you find blog posts, you find some videos, and you find a free stress test. So just for example, take a stress test and see what your stress level is. And what was kind of a funny thing when we did Wellness Orbit was that we're offering a stress training. And it's kind of maybe one of the most interesting stories related to what we do is that when people started to take our stress training, which is called Performing Under Pressure, then initially they take a self-evaluation test. And in the end of it, they take a self-evaluation test. And then every other training that we have, people got always better in the end. But in this training, people got worse in the end. So they say that we are more stressed, we are more burned out. Some of us thought that, well, something is wrong. But
they've become more aware of what stress is, so they're marking differently now that the thing is over.
You figured it out. Yes, that's the answer. That's the answer. They actually now notice that they are stressed. They now notice that they have a risk of burnout. And before they were not aware of a process.
Yeah.
And I would say that to simplify what we do is that when you can actually remove stress and anxiousness, and when you can create inner calmness, then you can actually prevent almost every work-related mental health issue that is out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's powerful, very powerful.
Down to calming down your mind and taking care of kind of reducing your stress level. And what is a very simplified approach how mental health problems develop is that they develop slowly. extremely slowly.
It's like a slow snowball slowly rolling downhill, gathering more events, gathering more situations, gathering more emotions, layering it on, and eventually it gets so big you got to look at it, right? Or sometimes you get a lot of sunshine and it melts it down a little bit, or you find a way to break it up into loads of little snowballs, or and sometimes I guess like you're saying, you can actually build the capability within your mind so that these snowballs don't exist. They don't impact you emotionally on a day-to-day anymore, and you know how to handle it if in the event that they are triggered. So vital life skills, I'm with you. It's like they should be taught in school. 100%. I'm with you. Listen, Paul, you mentioned about the planning business you started. We sold it. I'd love to know how much you sold it for. Could you give us a figure?
Well, I keep it a trade secret.
Keep it a trade secret. All right, cool.
Yeah, I didn't become a millionaire, unfortunately.
Yeah, all right. And then we heard about the wife for 14 years, and it took 5 years for the business to go from the thinking into the action. Now the business is up and running. You're serving a B2B audience, and now you've also got the ability to serve anyone who's interested through those stress tests that are available on your website. We stored it in the top right-hand corner at the start of the episode when I shared my screen. We had a look at your website. There's a stress test there in the top right-hand corner. Go check it out, most definitely. But what I would say is, what a fascinating journey. What a great conversation. What have you learned along the way? This is called Startup Success Students, after all. So what we always like to leave on is this notion of a lesson that you would pass on to a future entrepreneur. I think what we can guess what it's going to be roughly around, given the nature of our conversation. But I'd love to hear, what is your one key lesson that you would pass on?
Figure out how to keep your inner calmness. If you can stay innerly calm, everything else is already solvable. But when your mind becomes a mess, you become a mess.
Powerful. Mate, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I would say that's the most important thing.
I agree. Very powerful. Hugely important thing.
Yeah, same here. Thank you, Ryan.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure that you invited me, and let's hope good advices that you are sharing in different areas.
Yeah, mate. Listen, it's I love this series. It's get me to speak with so many different people across so many different disciplines and so many different areas. I seem to be able to have some common threads with everyone, and I get to learn just a lot about how different people approach situations. I get to share those lessons with an audience, and I just enjoy the conversations personally as well. Just on a personal level. So thank you for your time. Thank you for opening up. Thank you for talking to me. Thank you for allowing us to share these lessons with other people too. And don't forget, everyone who's watching, links are going to be down below. You're going to see Wellness Orbit. You're going to see roundkareem.com. Check them both out, and we'll see you next time. All right. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.